Hey everybody, this is Perch. If you are joining us, thank you. It's kind of late on a Friday, and we're just here kind of talking about comics, going to answer some questions, go into the news, all that kind of stuff. Like we did last time, ask anything you like. I'll make a crazy attempt to answer it. That went off the rails a little bit last week, but last week, I guess it was. But I've got Robert Willing with me this time to kind of help guide the conversation. Robert, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad at all. Literally just got done with work, and well, thank goodness for working from home.
Yeah, no kidding. You're not sick of it yet, then? You're okay with that?
Yeah, I'd rather do that than having to drive an hour all the way into work and an hour back.
That's fair. Yeah, it has made the commute easier. I'm saving a lot of money on gas, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's tough though. You'll get sick of the same things. You find yourself moving around the room just to kind of have a different office, and people get crazy.
Sure. Well, it helps that I moved into my own house, so both it's easy to get bored, but at the same time, I could do whatever the hell I want.
Yeah. Oh, no, exactly. I mean, a lot of flexibility, but it is. I'm glad for people kind of coming into the room right now. Like I said, we're going to just kind of talk comics, ask anything you want. A lot of kind of crazy things happened this week, and Robert and I are going to kind of break it down. And it's
no kidding.
all good stuff. Yeah. Speaking of which, if you saw the preview cover there, we'll go ahead and put this up here. This Wonder Woman. So this is kind of late breaking thing in the October solicits. There's a picture of Wonder Woman and Max Lord kind of sitting in beach chairs, and there's an assassin kind of coming in behind them. But just in the course of the day, they changed the cover to change Max Lord's gun into kind of a different gun. And I'll show an example of that. It's one of those you didn't necessarily see this coming. Here, let me put something up on the screen for you guys to kind of take a look at. But it's just one of those kind of funny moments. Here, check this out. So this is the before and after. If you saw in the front, so there on the left is the original cover that was solicited, and then there on the right, he's got kind of a little flashlight gun.
Yeah, I was wondering, what the heck is that flashlight?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm not. Is it? I mean, it's. I think intended to be some kind of weapon. I guess, but maybe totally more deadly. Actually, I mean, if it's gonna look at that spread from that thing, I think it'll roast somebody.
Is he shooting it with the light on it and everything, or what?
I don't know. This is he's man spreading though, so there's a lot of things going on. But anyway.
Go there.
Yeah, no, it's funny. It is. She is all about like the comment. She is all about forgiveness. So, she's got to at least, she did kill that guy at one point. So,
is that canon or not? And believe me, with Bendis, it's hard to tell even more so than ever what's canon and what's not.
That's true. That's true.
Hard to started on the end of the Lois Lane mini.
It's true. It is. It's a funny looking gun anyway. It's some good. Yep. As Matt points out, this looks like the fart gun from Me. That's exactly what that looks like. So maybe
it does look like it.
Yeah. Anyway, all kind of funny stuff here. We're right off into some good stuff for comics, but hey. This is a good question. I'm curious to get Robert's take on it. I'll ask too. What are some of your favorite monthly titles? Robert, what are you enjoying right now?
Oh, anything by Snyder. So I got so many DC books. If it's a Black Label or if it's Snyder, like I said. And when I don't buy it, I do at least check through and flip through at my local comic store. Immortal, Hulk, Venom, and all that. But as far as buying, it's still Green Lantern. Superman, but only out of obligation. That's how dedicated I am. Batman, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be dropping Wonder Woman now that Orlando is all done.
Yeah.
Green Lantern, the Justice League books. Yeah, I'm all DC.
Yeah, it's funny. You go through waves. Sometimes I'm definitely collecting more Marvel, sometimes DC. I mean, everybody should know I read everything. Or everything I can get my hands on. But in terms of favorite stuff that I always kind of jump to, I don't know. It's some of it's based on the mood at the time. I'm trying to think of there's definitely some Marvel stuff that I'll go to right away in the stack, and then on the DC side, I was curious I'm not answering your question though. Favorite monthly titles, which is different than curiosity. I was curious how they're going to land Empire and some of these other things, but that wouldn't necessarily be favorite. And I hate to give the same answers. I like Hawkman, but I notice that every time we go on, every time though there's a stream though, we talk about how great Hawkman is. It is great, but it
is great. It's so underrated too.
It is. I always want to have a better, not a better answer, but a different answer, because I feel like I give that answer all the time.
Well, as far as my favorite title, so far I'd have to say Batman is currently.
Batman's it's solid run right now. Absolutely. It very much is. I think some of the indies that are out right now. I mean, I don't know. By the time we get to the end of the show, I'll have a better answer for this. But there are some good titles out there right now. And hey, in the chat, if there's some other things that you guys like, bring it in.
May I ask you a question though? It comes to, something I've been wanting to ask. When it comes to what Bendis is doing, how he's trying to, it feels like he's trying to be way more clever than he thinks. Like with, Connor is the original pre-Flashpoint Connor. And even though Rucka wrote it, was clearly Bendis' idea. Lois, remember, she's two. Lois is rolled into one, even though that's not how it worked.
Yeah.
Like, what is your opinion on that? Do you think he's just trying to be like how clever I am or what?
Well, I mean, Bendis, he's got a plan for the books. I guess the strange thing about it is it feels like, and I go back and forth. It feels like he came in with a pitch and he's executing that pitch for Superman. He wanted to have an all-encompassing. This is kind of going to be the feel and the tone and the story elements and the plots, and this is what he's going to do. And meanwhile, over in DC, they're doing these huge world-changing events. They've got big things happening with Batman and what Tom King was doing, and they have Death Metal and all the rest. And so it feels like everybody at DC's at that biggest level is kind of fighting each other for oxygen to just allow their stories to breathe. And it winds. I think I used this analogy like a week ago. It sounds like everybody in DC at the big levels, at the top levels, like playing their own instrument, all simultaneously in the same room. And it's hard to make sense of it from time to time, and it's also hard to tell where this all lands. Like I have a hard time. Bendis is saying he's wrapping up his arc. He could have another year or more left in it. But it's hard to imagine 2 years from now, the writers that come after kind of carrying on with a lot of these storylines. It feels like they're going to start over,
Yeah, but after that, with how he's been handling continuity, because let's be honest, Bendis has never been a continuity guy. And yet now it's like he's trying to bring back continuity, but the way he's doing it is, again, a mess, a complete utter mess.
Well, it's brought in continuity and it's taken continuity away. It's like simultaneously, he's got a plan. I think he wanted to put the right pieces in place for Legion of Superheroes and all the rest. It's just early on, I think a lot of readers looked at that and said, we don't like the plan. We're not interested in this direction, but he's plowing forward anyway, because he's got to kind of execute his vision to its finish. And at Marvel, to be fair, there were some skeptics with what he was doing with Avengers. And then kind of when we got to Dark Reign and kind of that era, a lot of people were won over by his plan. They're like, okay, this is not so bad. I don't see it working out that way this time. I mean, Legion of Superheroes is all over the place. The Wonder Comics stuff has been not a bust exactly, but just kind of it's hard to tell where it's going. And I don't know.
Yeah, because I think with this, I think that Marvel, the way I see it, he was more in what Snyder's role is currently. He was the one, he guided the ship for so long. I mean, how many events did he do during his whole tenure? Like 1, 2, 3, 4 major events that kind of radicalized everything.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's, the most he's done over at DC has been Event Leviathan, and while that was a shakeup, it was a snoozer.
Yep. Yeah, well, again, and Leviathan I think was meant to be more, but it's fighting with Joker War, it's fighting with Death Metal, it's fighting with the shutdown with the virus. There's just too much all at once, and I mean, there's just no way you can land another kind of big overarching thing. And I think Bendis probably went deep in trying to get into the mythology of the Manhunters and kind of really pull that continuity forward. But it's like there's no, maybe I'm being too generous to him. There's no breathing room. There's no time for this right now with everything else going on, and so it gets lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. Well, hey, I see someone asking about Rorschach.
Yeah,
You
right
go
there.
ahead. I'll give my opinion afterwards.
Yeah. Well, this is one of those where like you could see it coming a mile away. I mean, the HBO show, and there's some mixed opinions on it, but it was, for all intents and
I
purposes,
liked it.
it was successful. I mean, from financially for them, it wasn't like Game of Thrones successful, but it was successful. So you knew some stuff was coming. I mean, there was no doubt it was going to come. So
Right.
I probably this is the best way to do it. If I guess you these 12 issue kind of series, in the universe, do one at a time. Don't make it an event. Don't do all. But I mean, there's a lot of Watchmen going on right now. I mean, we've got the Batman Who Laughs is Batman Dr. Manhattan right now. I should say spoilers. But there's it's the Watchmen universe is well embedded into DC at this point, and
Yep.
not surprised. What do you think? Are you glad they did this?
I'm torn personally because now I will say this: the idea of Rorschach playing off of people who loved and adored him and are getting the wrong message.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest, that matches real life. How
Yeah.
many people do you ever hear of when it came to Rorschach when the HBO show came out? People were defending it tooth and nail, and yet when you think about it, you're like, guys, Rorschach wasn't a hero. Yes, he was doing the right thing, but he was not a good guy. He was insane, and when you really look at his principles, you're more enjoying it because it lined up with what was the right thing to do. But in the end, his way's not the right way.
Yeah, I no, it was never intended to be. I mean, the Watchmen. I mean, nobody was like. It was about people making questionable choices, doing things for their ideals, or I mean, it was always intended to be that way. That said, it's like in our polarized world, I guess we're going to have some people who love him and people who hate him simultaneously. But this book, at least, is going to. I think we're going to see Rorschach from a distance. It's going to be this detective is going to be the main character, and then he's going to be.
He could be Rorschach.
It could be. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. There's a, it's a twist. It's a memory problem, and in half the time when he's asleep, he's also this character. I wouldn't be surprised at all if it went there.
Yeah, I don't think it's tying into Doomsday Clock. For how long it took Tom King to work on it, I do not see this tying into it at all.
No, definitely.
He would have to have been working while Doomsday Clock was wrapping up.
No, it's not going to. I think I can say pretty definitively. Maybe I'm wrong. It's not going to tie into Doomsday. I bet it doesn't really tie into anything. I think it's going to be Black Label off the whole world. Yeah, I mean, if anything, I think it'll tie into the show.
Right. Again, I think it's going to be its own third timeline. I think it's going to be you have the show, you have Doomsday Clock, and you have this. That way, it could tie into the show. I don't think so because given how it's supposed to be 35 years later and all that, something just tells me it just doesn't add up.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. I think it's they're wanting to play in that world, but it's going to kind of be out of continuity and so on. I have not. I need to try Chainsaw Man. You are the third. The question.
I've never heard of this. What is Chainsaw Man?
I have had this recommendation hit me 3 times this week, so something is going on. You'll have to mention in the chat why Chainsaw Man. But I'm now very intrigued. I've got to get into on this. So please, somebody let me know. I will definitely by this time next week. I'll try it.
Someone's bringing up about editors.
Yeah.
That I've never heard of. Yeah, I have to agree with that. And the big problem is you look at those old editors. Like the one my always go-to guy to bring up is Mike Carlin. How he ran a tight ship with the Superman titles. Maybe too tight of a ship, some could say, but you can't fault the fact that the guy really kept Superman at the most consistent he's ever been under his tenure. And again, he might have been a bit too dictatorial. I mean, Jeff Loeb not being banned because of that. What was that miniseries he did with Tim Sale? Not the Superman one, but the other one.
Well, there's a few. I mean, there were bannings. There were kind of blacklists, for lack of a better word, that went on. But I mean, editors were stronger, and there was a big pushback. There's a lot of creators who very vocally said, if you want to have great creators on products, you need to loosen up the editorial standards. This battle kind of raged through the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. Kind of conflict back and forth. It's one of those cases why, and it's a longer conversation, but why a lot of people kind of lionize Jim Shooter for everything he did. But there was a lot that went on during that time period that almost as a counter reaction, we got to where we are today. Now, it's not Jim Shooter's fault, but it's like this whole environment. it moved to the kind of depowering of editors. And again, a lot of people were cheering that on. Like the image guys were like, we don't want editors. We don't want these restrictions. That's part of, yeah, one of the reasons why. And then we see the result of that. So there needs to be.
I was going to say prime example of that. The Deathmate team up crossover.
Sure.
Look at what Bob Layton had to deal with, having to sit literally at Rob Liefeld's house to make sure that the first book got out the door.
Yeah, no, I mean, their editors would help immensely. We need more editors in comics. We need editors higher paid. I mean, this is one of those funny things, but it kind of goes under the radar. A lot of editors are paid terribly, and their job sucks. I mean, they have more titles than they can handle. They do not, in many cases, have enough training. They don't have enough budget to really, get good talent on books. And they're not, it's almost you have to be in it for your own pride. Nobody's sitting over your shoulder going, hey, you made a continuity error over here, or this title could have used, there's nothing like that. So.
Yep. Another example I give of a current editor that I don't care for is Andy Curry. How it's clearly, he's such a hands-off guy, unless you match his politics, in which case he will push you to say, go ahead. But if he disagrees with you, get the hell out.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's the editorial job has shifted quite a bit, and in many cases, you're hearing editors talk about how their ultimate goal is to kind of work their way into an exclusive writer position, and that's where they're wanting to be. And it's just the format needs to change. I got a really good question that in my email that I need to go in and answer as a video, which is basically, should more money come into comics? If suddenly the big two doubled the paychecks, would we see better behavior? Would it help? And there's
that's the number one question, given who's owning them now. Like AT&T, that would give them more. And right now where they're at is the reason why AT&T feels safe to keep them around, because there's very little they'd be lose, and there's a lot more they'd lose getting rid of them, but they wouldn't be gaining that much cutting them off as well. So, but if they started paying people more, that's more reason to put them on the chopping block.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. I think that more money would help. The thing that I would say, and I'll go into more detail another time, is that probably these two big companies, they have one advantage the smaller ones don't, in that they have stock they can play with. They've got equity in their parents. And one of the great things about equity as a motivator is, let's say you're Bendis. And you say, if you get the titles above a certain level, if you can get kind of, or the Superman editor, any of these people, if you can achieve a certain milestone, we'll give you, 1,000 shares. And if you go to the next level, we'll give you 5,000 shares. It's a steep ramp up of shares. So that motivates you in two ways. One, it motivates you for your own individual performance to make your title grow, so you get more shares. Two, you're more likely to want to help the company. You're more likely to want to, promote maybe people's books who aren't your own, because it will overall help the stock price. Now, the flaw in what I just said is that, of course, if you're getting stock in Disney, ultimately, no matter what you do at Marvel, it's not going to affect that Disney stock too much. So it's not a one-to-one.
Sorry. Now, so why they bring in better editors? I think the big thing is they're hiring, like with other artists and all that, they're hiring their friends. They're hiring people who they have as assistant editors. And then those assistant editors get upgraded to main editors, and then they don't know what they're doing because they were just brought in, to be assistant, and you know where I'm going with this, right? It's like, so it's like, so long unless they actually decided that you have the main people decide, okay, cut the fat, let's get some real editors in here. That's not going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I think money is a problem in all this, and I think training is a problem, and it's just there's a lot in there, but it's a tough. I feel very bad for the editor position, but I don't feel very bad for a lot of the people who hold that job, if that makes any sense.
I think DC has better editors all around who actually do care about the characters compared to Marvel, because Andy Curry's the only editor I could think of at DC who I have issues with. Whereas Marvel, I can name a couple off the top of my head that's been there or that are still there or have been there.
Yeah, I think that it's a tough job, and they've got a lot of people inside of it who are just either overworked or ill-equipped to do that job, and so it's like you're set up to fail. And then if you've ever had a job, just think about yourself and whatever life you're in, and you feel like there's no way for you to be successful, no matter what you do, no matter how hard you work or whatever else. the end result's going to be the same, it's demotivating. That's, you know, who wants to push hard in that environment? It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, real quick, so where are we going here? Cliff asked me, how am I coming along with my book? It's going to be, I'm coming along okay. As soon as I get, I would say about 40 pages, I'm going to start sharing things. My plan is I am going to finish it prior to, I'm not doing a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo or anything. I'm going to finish it and then figure out how we want to distribute it. But I'm getting there. I'm getting close to 40 pages in. It's going to be about 100 pages. My plan is 5 chapters of 20. So
yeah, nice.
Yeah, I'll share the plot here. As I'll share the plot along with 40 pages or so when I have it. But it's coming along slow but sure. It's not going to be an amazing thing. I just want to say it's just I wanted to do it, so I'm going to do it. In 2021, I'll launch it. So
yep. Now you mentioned before about DC cancellations. I missed your video on that. What DC stuff has been canceled?
Yeah, so a few books were announced to be canceled. So first of all, Batgirl is final.
Oh yeah.
And we have a couple. In fact, I have some covers here. I'll throw up here.
Oh yeah, Batgirl, Batman, Justice League Odyssey, and Batman and the Outsiders.
That's the one.
Batgirl, I'm not surprised. Issue 50. That seems to be the traditional cutoff lately.
Yeah, I love this cover. By the way, I think this is really, really nice. Cover for the final.
Joker looks a little weird.
Joker looks well, yeah, he does. I mean, it's that sketch plus realistic. It's an interesting cover, but you know, it's sad to see it. It's sad to see it in, but I think this is a case where we'll see a couple more into November and December. I don't think it's going to be it, and you know, it's just going to be this kind of lead up to death metal ending, and then how you know, whatever the new world looks like after that. I think Batman and the Outsiders is the other one. Now, Brian Hill said there will be another season coming up of all this. So, you know, in theory, we're not done. But
it's probably to get him work on it, I bet.
I hope so. I mean, he said that about Fallen Angels, and I don't think we're getting another Fallen Angels series, but hopefully, you know, that we do get a little bit more with Batman and the Outsiders. I think this is a book, I mentioned it, I don't know, a week ago or so, that there's, and Justice League Odyssey had it with Jessica Cruz. There's some characters that are getting really good development in these books, and much better than if they launched a solo book and just have them float on their own.
Yeah, the only problem with Justice League Odyssey is that it was at the detriment of all the other characters.
Yeah, no, Justice League Odyssey, I mean, Cruz, it was ultimately a Jessica Cruz book. Cyborg did not get much love. Azrael,
Nora, Starfire.
Yeah,
it's like, I mean, I understand it was like they were in Dan Abbott was playing off of the plot that who started? Joshua Williams, I think.
Yes.
Who started the book? Yeah. I think he was just playing off of that, so he kind of felt like I kind of have no choice, so I got to take what ball I ran with. But yeah, I just don't like how those others have been just completely wasted.
Mm-hmm. No, it's there'll be some shuffling. We'll see what comes out the other end, but hopefully that
was ending though. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm drinking whiskey, by the way, Brian. And if we were together, we'd be drinking whiskey together. That'd be good. Whiskey's good on a Friday. That's all I know. I've seen some other people, by the way. Just some general comments, kind of all along. It's good stuff. By the way, thank you for all the praise and help I get for the channel. You guys coming and checking out the videos and all that stuff's wonderful. I really appreciate it. Always nice, and I continue to kind of evolve. For those of you who are, I think I may have cracked the bad audio situation I have in my car, so I'm excited about that. Somebody sent me a little blog entry of how to do that better. And then I'm going to be converting my videos over to Final Cut Pro, which will give me a few more tools to do some things. So that hopefully will be fun too.
Hey, since it's with Empire now, because I remember before with She-Hulk, and I know you made that comment about poking fun at it, but I gotta say I was happy seeing a traditional She-Hulk for once. Yeah,
no, I mean, I think it's good. I don't mind. I mean, look, for me, and this, I know I'm different from others here. I don't care too much what people do, and you can do whatever you want. I'll like it or I won't like it. It's fine. But I like it to be more or less consistent. It should try and make some semblance of sense. And poor She-Hulk, I can't I would love to just sit down with an editor and say, all right, what's the plan here? Like, what's going on? Because it is all over the place.
Keeping you to the tool.
Yeah, I mean, Empire too. They gave her a hammer, and so now she's unified. Now, I guess. I don't. It took a hammer to do that. I don't. But then her solo series, for all the ribbing and the way people didn't like the Tamaki run, that series ended. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat here, but I believe it ended with her kind of coming to peace with herself, and that's how that series ended. So then
then Aaron threw a wrench at it.
Yeah, then went over to Aaron. I cannot tell what he was doing with like her inner voice. Well, she starts out depressed and still shell shocked, and then she turns into She-Hulk, and She-Hulk is dumb and horny. And
I know. I think
yeah.
Aaron. I have a feeling Aaron never liked She-Hulk. That's my feeling personally. I think he never liked traditional She-Hulk. It's my opinion, and that he wanted to make sure people knew that this She-Hulk was here to stay. But judging how Dan Slott, who had a great run with her before, and Al Ewing, who clearly has had his own issues, I'm guessing, based off of how some of his writing, I think they're like, screw you, we're fixing her.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, but I still can't tell. Is it a fix? Like again, this is some spoilers here, so you might want to duck out for a moment for Empire. We can get into that. So now's the time to drop if you.
Who cares? It's not going to be important.
It what confuses me a little bit. So like the Quadi are the villains. They're the shock villains in this. I don't think that's shocking, but anyway, they're the villains, and they gave She-Hulk the hammer. So is it a bad weapon now? Is it going to take over her? Is it? I mean, this is something good that happened to the character, but it was given to her by a villain to help unify her. But why would they want to do that if they were planning on taking her out? I'm not sure the plan.
True, but like I said, I think it is a fix. Given how, again, Al Ewing's already trying to do some repairs already, and having it be, her change was because she died, and well, that every time you go through the green door, you end up changed.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't tell anymore. Empire was an interesting deal. By the way, so with audio, we'll work it out here. I know Robert. It sounds like Robert's audio is a little lower and mine's a little higher, so I will lean back a little bit, and Robert can lean in a little bit. We'll just do this.
All right, sorry.
We'll make it work. We'll get it all worked out. I'm in Empire is a book that didn't have a lot of momentum going into it, and now it's.
I'll be honest, I was lost just flipping through it because I didn't read any of the build-up. Yeah,
it's going to be tough, I think. Marvel has a lot of things working against it right now. It's at a time when they had a pause and people are confused, and I mean, in many cases,
they have too many events.
Too many events. I think a lot of fans have kind of washed their hands of it and are like, they're just ready to move on to, King in Black and other things. I think at this point, they're just anxious to get to the next event. So they're like, they'd like this one to go. The thing that worries me about Empire are the threats, which best word to put it, that this is going to launch a bunch of new issues and new stories and comics. Like, please don't launch anything new. Just chill out.
I know, but I would say this. At least in both, the funny thing is both Empire and Death Metal have a similar opening of, the things already happened, changes already happened. But at least Death Metal gave a bit more of an explanation behind everything during it. And yes, you didn't have, and I felt like you didn't have to read all the build-up to understand it. Whereas Empire, I'm like, I'm lost. I'm completely lost.
Yeah, no, I think, well, and the other thing is, it's you get the feeling with Death Metal, although the ending will change this if it does rewrite a bunch of things in the DC universe. You can't ignore it. If you don't like Death Metal, there's Joker Wars, other stuff going on. You can pretty much remove yourself from it and keep going. With Empire, it's going to suck in a lot of other books, and again, it's this threat that at the end, the Marvel universe will never be the same again, and we're having a space universe and everything. I just. I wish the comic companies kind of put a moratorium for a moment, because they're killing off some of their own titles. Like I think I mentioned this last week. What's going on in Ghost Rider or the Avengers or Doctor Strange or some of these core books of theirs that they just there's no room to market them. There's no room to anything. We're off. We're just doing constant events. But
no kidding. And I see someone just popped another question about the Wildstorm universe. Well,
yeah, what do you think?
What else is new? He's done it before.
That's true. Yeah, no, it has been. It's interesting because it's kind of a reintroduction. I mean, Grifter has been in the DC universe. He's part of the New 52 and showed up in. Was it? No, it was Grifter. It was Midnighter, I guess. It showed up in Grayson. Yeah, but I think that they're going to do more. It feels like I can't tell, to be honest. I mean, my speculation on Grifter in particular and Batman is that following the conclusion of Joker War, it may be part of the reason for that crazy armor that we're getting, that Batman's pretty beat up, and so we have to, we Lucius Fox basically finds somebody who can kind of help defend the city while Batman's recovering, and Grifter's that person. I don't.
The closest thing to Punisher.
Yeah, I don't know if that's where it's going, but it feels like it might. So
yeah, I feel that could be what
do you think of this armor, by the way?
What? Oh, the armor?
Yeah, what do you
think? I'm interested by it.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I don't think it's going to last. That does not look like an outfit. It's going to last, though.
Yeah, this is a temporary thing. This is not a new costume that we're getting forever. It looks like a more bulked up armor, something that's going to protect him a little bit better. Maybe because
it last the rest of Tinian's run, yeah, but I don't see it lasting forever.
No, it's just a short. I think this is a very short temporary thing. Looks like some spikes pop out of the side. That. Yeah. That's there.
That's the funny thing is you could tell when you look at an outfit, you can kind of tell, oh yeah, that's permanent, and oh no, that's not.
Yeah. This is clearly temporary. There's no nipples in this costume, so that's a problem. There we go. It does, as some people are saying in the chat, this does very much remind me of the Superman Blue kind of moment.
I gotta say, I will defend the Superman Blue era of Superman. I think it gets a bad rap, personally.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
what did you think of it?
It fit the times. I mean, it's easy to look back on it now and go, that looks silly, but at the time, it was something new for Superman. It was short-lived. I mean, it wasn't long. I think a lot of people kind of, in hindsight, view it as like this thing that went on for like 10 years. It wasn't. It was very, very.
I remember David Michelini lost his writing job because he told it in an interview, everyone knows that this isn't going to last. You don't say that in an interview.
It's funny because there's so many things that would be said in the 80s and the 90s that would lose your job or were big kind of no-nos in the business. And now, now it's safer to say. They'll spoil it in USA Today. I mean, I like this comment here because it fits into something else. The spikes are for social. And the mask pops down. So believe it or not, I think there's a video. I don't know. I'm ahead by about a week and a half in videos. So there's a bunch of stuff that's scheduled. But one of the things that came out in some chats I have is that, they're talking about how to reflect the masks in the comics. And when I say masks, I mean the face mask, not the superhero mask. And to kind of support the current moment and reflect the world outside your window, we're going to have a bunch of masks in comics, and I cannot mentally come close to understanding how this is a good idea or how this is ridiculous.
I agree. I mean, Marvel, I can to a degree. DC, not really.
No, and not DC, but I mean, you're like Captain Marvel, and there's a question of here, like, you got to put Captain Marvel in a mask? I mean, I think she can fly around in space. Like, what? Yeah. What's she doing?
Power should be able to prevent her from doing it. Wolverine. Should Wolverine wear a mask about his healing? Oh, his healing is actually affected by Corona. What?
Sure. Well, that and I mean, I
can still imagine that. You just get it worse.
Or is it just a way to keep Captain Marvel or Wolverine from being a super spreader by breathing on people? I mean, that's you could say that, I guess, but it's just weird. This is one of those cases where some current events, don't put them in the comics. We don't need to see it there.
Yeah.
Okay. It's all right. I
can see some things. Like, I've been playing Postal 4. I don't know if you've ever heard of that game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've been playing because I have the early access and all that. They actually have an update where now everyone in town walks around with face masks on. And I'm like, okay, for this game, it's kind of fitting in a way. It's just, given how running with scissors can be, they're always putting in eventually dated stuff into their thing. So it's like, I'm not going to argue that.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, I don't know. Comics, sometimes they want to get in on social issues. When it was, I think not social issue, but current events, current social. And it always falls so flat because it takes so long for the comic to get to market. And then like, it just doesn't make any sense. And it feeds, with a lot of people having issues about Captain Marvel's characters being written. How would you help fix Carol's character? Would you give her memory loss so she can redeem herself? I actually think it'd be really easy to fix Captain Marvel. And the trick is this. Just have her go out and just have a heroic adventure where, she fights a villain that's tougher than her and she has to be smart and beat that villain and then have her fight another villain and another one.
Exactly. I don't think she's done something as bad as Tony did after Civil War where you kind of needed the memory wipe and all that.
Yeah.
I think in that case, you just simply put her in an adventure and it's less what she's done in the Marvel universe and more how fans look at her. That I think you just need to go through and just don't reference it. Put a moratorium on referencing a lot of her stuff in the past few years, unless you really need it.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say. Have an editorial moment. Did I use the right word?
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Just put it on referencing her stories and just give it some time to just have some fun.
Yeah, there's no, I think, don't have her, compliment herself. Don't surround her by friends who are going to say how great she is. Just put her in a very dangerous situation. So picture like a 6-issue arc and she comes into it and suddenly like her home base, wherever it is just blown up and it's the wrecking crew or whatever. Just pick your random villains. And they're able to be slightly smarter than her and get her on the ropes a little bit. And she defeats them, but it trigger some stronger villains, maybe pick your poison, any of them, who basically say she's vulnerable, she's weak, let's take her out, put a bounty on her head, and just the villains are going to be very merciless, and they don't care about casualties. So Captain Marvel kind of has to run because she doesn't want people to get killed in the crossfire of people attacking her. So she has to kind of get them out to reasonable ground, and maybe they're using some more obscure Marvel characters like the Living Laser and other things that can chase her up into space or whatever it is to ground her again, and just make her struggle to get through some villains, and definitely have her be victorious at the end. But when she is, just have her be smart, have her defeat them, have her, work her way to the next threat, pit her against some big threat, pit her against the Dr. Dooms or the whoever you want to have, but make the villains very threatening and don't have her just easily defeat them. And in some cases, when she goes up against Dr. Doom, then have Doom beat her and kind of make her say, all right, well, I flew in there too headstrong. I need to come in with a better plan. And I need to, make sure I know what I'm doing before I just charge in and try and defeat and make her struggle a little bit. And I think people will rapidly, work. I think, yeah.
I got a better idea. Have her be lost in space and have her powers be depleted in some regard, and she has to make her way back. It's going to take her some time, like Star Trek Voyager, like with her, and she had to go through there. She's still going to help people. She can't help. Yeah, we can't avoid that.
Yeah.
But she's going to be on worlds where, for example, say she goes down there and her energy immediately because of the atmosphere diminishes her abilities.
Yeah, I definitely think you put her in space. It fits her power set and everything else. But if you do that, then we need to have her go up against some threats that are known. One of the challenges is they put her up against like faceless alien number 3, and it's like it's bad for everybody. So she got to go up against some like put her up against the
Black Guard. What's Thanos' guard again?
The Black Order. You have the Champions of the Universe. Put her up against the Game Master doing something big cosmic thing. Put her against some villains that are out of her class power wise, and make her strong. And but you got to get out of the for whatever reason they really seem to set the latest Captain Marvel issue they want to do the drinking poker night with Wolverine, and they go to an escape room with Miss Marvel, and it's like you're not winning over any hearts here. It's too early to run to that kind of at home issue, I think. But
right. But yeah, I mean, out of all characters, I think Carol is the one that is in desperate need of a fixing more than anyone else. I can't. Yeah, I can't think of anyone else who really needs it more than her. Can you?
No, she definitely does. Especially with Marvel and Disney want to do more with character. They want to make a franchise out of her, so they need to start. It's that classic problem. They went too far too fast, where they said she's big, so we're going to say she's important, and then they forget the key building blocks to actually make people care along the way.
Exactly, because all they wanted was power fantasies. That's all they wanted were power fantasies.
Yeah. A lot of good ideas in the chat, by the way, on this. And by the way, thank you, Epidoxa, for joining us for a bit of time. I will definitely do a shot for you. But, put her on War World. There's a lot of good suggestions here. And definitely, I think Miss Marvel, I think almost every character can be, fixed or brought into better prominence pretty easily. You just have to, take the time, put in the work, and you can do it. And to that point, somebody else had a question of if Marvel's reducing of her titles, would Miss Marvel make the cut for you? This is tricky because Miss Marvel, when the series launched, the beginning with G. Willow Wilson, it did actually it fit a good niche. It did well. I mean, it didn't do 200,000 copies well, but nothing was.
It was still a surprise hit though.
Yeah, it was a hit, and it was a hit for a simple reason. It was like a character who wasn't, one of the big people. There was some humility to the title. She was struggling.
She was a fangirl.
She was a fangirl, and they just made it so she was facing smaller threats and struggling their way through it. And there was a charm to it. And Marvel needs books like that. It's kind of how Spider-Man started, way, way back.
I think what helped it though was that it was supposed to be a 6-issue series that was just going to end at 6, but then it became so big, people were like, okay, let's keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it helped that G. Will Wilson was so protective of her. And from what I understand from interviews, correct me if I'm wrong, when it started getting more political, that was less Willow and more editorial pushing on her to do it.
Well, we don't know. We think so.
Yeah, I think she had said something like that. Like they started, like she was given such free reign, but as they got close to the Civil War II, is when editorial finally be like, oh, she's a big person. We need her here, there, and she started losing control.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, it'll be interesting to dig into more of it. I mean, Civil War II was kind of the train wreck era of Marvel, both with that and then Secret Empire that followed. And it was Marvel kind of enforcing crossovers that really didn't fit. And of all the characters that didn't need it, I mean, Miss Marvel was meant to be small, smaller scale, really kind of humanizing the character and everything else, tossing it into the Tony Stark, Carol war with, the encampment prison that she did. I mean, it didn't fit the title, it didn't fit the character, and it derailed it horribly. And I think they've been trying to get back to that original feel for a long time. And that was just, yeah.
Hey, back to my point, the thing I was asking about Bendis earlier. Where do you stand on a writer like Bendis, for example, who can, on a whim, override continuity, even where there's already another creator in the book, like what he did with Bruce Banner in the Hulk during during Civil War II, where that was so obvious. He, you had Greg Pak doing one thing, and then Bendis came in saying, actually, this happened while the book was still going.
Yeah, I mean, it's, well, first off, I think none of this stuff happens in a vacuum. I think there are writers' summits, and there's definitely people who have more stroke and more power than others, and they get their way. I think the whole...
That felt so,
Oh, no, it was if we're forgetting the expression, it was a dick move. It was, you should try always, it goes back to that, if they gave shares and you were motivated to be successful, but also make everyone successful, because all boats rise when everybody's doing well. There was a lot of kind of, it's my way. And this is, all these things are connected. It's one of the reasons why publishers have struggled at times of, elevating creators, writers or artists, because they get to a certain point and then they become unmanageable. And then you're fighting to kind of rein them back in. And there's a lot of horror stories about Bendis, forgetting about the writing, just kind of how he treats some of his subordinates and editors and others that he won't call them back and that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stories out there. Maybe, by the way, some of these are not true. Who knows? People complain all the time, so you don't know exactly where the truth sits. But you hope that comics are coordinated. I think what happened with Pack was lousy. It took money off the table for a stunt that did not work. So
exactly, and I mean, okay, but now if you wanted to get out of the mainstream, I got a question with my own answer. We've been hearing about Shane Davis, Kenneth Rocafort, doing more of the crowdfunding stuff. Sure. All that. But have you noticed that there's, I've noticed, especially in people in certain communities, are usually going for the artists to come in. Have you noticed that people are there? I feel like they're trying to just repeat the image method of let's get great artists and forget about the writers. It feels that's what they're trying to go for lately. Because I've seen people try to go for Brett Booth to get him over, and it's like, you guys are focusing on the artists. What about writers?
Well, it is repeating some of that, but I think it's natural. I think crowdfunding, and it's often sold on art. It's sold on visuals. It's not at a, and some people always take offense when I say things like this, but it's just not at a maturity level where the story pitch is the big selling point. It's still where the visuals are going to. Yeah. I mean, and look at you have an Ethan Van Sciver make $1 million off of a book, and it's built on.
I'd rather give my 2 cents on that one. I'd rather not.
It's built on his panels. I mean, it's built on but you look at how it's advertised, and I think this isn't being unfair. If you look at how it's promoted, it's not promoted like, hey, here's a world-class master storyteller. It's promoted by look at this amazing art. So
true. I'm just saying, though, that I've always been in it more for the writing and artwork and all that. I mean, Dan Fraga's thing, I look at it, it looks interesting, but it just doesn't appeal to me as much as I like the guy's artwork.
Yeah, no, I think it's true. I think, though, that this will change. I think, and I know I've gotten some people, I've been told, I haven't heard it, but that I've been made fun of on some live streams for saying things like this. But crowdfunding, no matter the amount of money that's coming in for a few people, that's great, but this is a middle step. This isn't the end game, and the end game is where, it's got to be a little bit more solid. It's got to be a little bit more reliable about what's coming out. And I think in that world, like the comment that's on the screen, art will sell an initial pitch or a book. Writing will keep the buyers coming back, and it's incredibly true. That's where these two mirrors come together. So
exactly, that's why I made my statement about Iron Sights 2. First one I liked. Second one I have so much issues with. But at the very least, I'm giving him another chance because,
Well, sure. And I apologize for saying this. There's no way to say this without sounding insulting. A lot of the crowdfunded projects right now people are funding them for kind of, they're signed on for the party or the ideology, maybe doing it.
I'm not arguing that. I know it was a bunch of people openly say, I remember who said it, but someone that once said on another stream, 75% of the reason why people back it is for the group, and the rest is for wanting to actually see the product release.
Yeah, no, it's true. So they're buying, in some cases, they're buying art books, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's what they're buying. I do think you're going to see some books that have maybe a better marriage between writing and story coming out, where there's more emphasis there. I do think, and I advertise it too much, and people think I'm getting kickbacks. I am not, but the pitch and the outline, the plot holes, looks like a really solid book. The story is really solid, and the art looks good. So I think you're going to see more and more projects where those two come together, and I think we'll start to see some evolution of it.
And Sean Gordon Murphy's proven he can write.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we'll get more and more of that. I think hopefully, I've thought I heard that Brett Booth was doing something with Scott Lobdell, so maybe we'll get a book out of that, and that would be cool. And we'll see.
But he was saying recently, nothing but Marvel. I'll try DC. Yeah, that's not sounding good.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I would love to see. By the way, this comment I can't agree with more. Brett Booth is just made for the X-Men. I would love to see him on the X-Men.
Oh yeah.
It apparently is never going to happen, but I would love to see it.
Why do people have such a problem with Brett Booth? I love his art style. Why do I always hear people say, "Oh, it doesn't look too good"? It's like, what's the problem with it?
Everybody has their own things that they like or don't like, for sure.
Yeah, but the number of people.
Yeah, no, I don't know. It is. it is true. Like this comment that George makes, crowdfunding is different from monthly comic book buying. Crowdfunding is the closest thing to replicating the con experience. You get signed books, prints, cards, etc. It's fun. Yeah, you're buying. There's a better way to say it. But you're buying into a party. You're buying into an event, a moment, and
get a grab bag.
Yeah, and again, nothing wrong with that. It's just, but there is another step here where some of these books start to kind of take the next step into maybe a different distribution channel. They start evolving, and so I mean, yeah,
I say this: there are some people who make the book special, like Ethan or Doug Tenapel, and then there's others who are doing it because they have stuff they want to tell, like Tim Lim, Mark Pellegrini, or your boy Zach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel those are the type. It's like we're splitting into those two different groups.
Yeah, no, it is, but I think, unfortunately, in terms of buying into a party, again, that's not the right term. So please, nobody, get too offended by me saying that. But in terms of buying into that experience, it can only grow so big. The problem is there's only so much experience you can have, and so eventually it has to take that next step into whatever kind of a more distributed model needs to be. It needs to become more about the product you're getting, and so some people will continue to be able to make money off the experience, and that's great. But a lot of kind of new artists and new creators coming in are going to have to take those next steps to really get places. So, by the way, Ben mentions this titleless video smacks a weekly show. I'm going to do my best to make it a weekly show. So there you go.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hey, here's one other thing. Might suggest something for you because this is a route I'm going to do with your book.
Yeah.
Why don't you take a little bit of it, or make a side story and make a little ashcan copy so you can show people around what to expect from your book. Because I'm going to be doing something like that as well to get my stuff going.
Yeah. I think that we have to get braver, and there's a bunch of different pieces to it. But we got to get braver about releasing little bits of the story out. I think we have to break this model of $25 is the entry point. That's just never going to hold. I was going
to do ash cans that are free. Just give them out.
Yeah, and it's like the show we had last week with Larry, I think, and there's a couple of people, Lamar or Lanier as well. There's people who are out there making little books or even bigger books and getting this content out quickly, and that's at a much cheaper price point. I mean, they're coming in at the equivalent Marvel comic price, and that's great. So building up that momentum is going to really matter.
I think that's why Tim Lim and Mark Pellegrini's iconic comics have done so well. Look how many they get out within just this year alone.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Like almost 5 this year they'll have.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a question. It's weird. I've got two windows open. So here we go. This is a good one. So Reed, as an LCS owner, you're biased toward the mainstream industry. You're right. I agree. No, it's true. I agree, because the first place my mind goes to is, okay, I've got product coming in, I got product going out. So what's that channel? What's that looking like? But I will say that I do also believe when I say that crowdfunding needs to take another step. I don't mean into the shops. I don't mean joining the mainstream industry. I mean the mainstream industry will change. It means there has to be you can't sell on a vanity project anymore. You have to sell on like Netflix does, where you're dropping seasons or these other things. As I have struggled to open a shop up again, I think that a lot of the things about the mainstream industry are must change. Or inevitably they're going to change. And so one of two things are going to happen. Either a lot of the big players are going to get together and try and make changes themselves, or small disruptors are going to come in and change it for them. Crowdfunding as it currently is not that disruptor. And what I mean by that is it's getting attention, it's getting a lot of books made, it's getting some new people money, which is great, but it's not going to, it's not a plan that can be replicated by lots of people right away. And I should explain myself better. So let me kind of gather my thoughts and I'll put that out there. But none of what I'm saying is shade toward crowdfunding. I think it's great that there's more channels. It just, it needs to, put it this way, if the big names of crowdfunding stopped, if they said, we got a lot of money, good, we're going to stop now. Or maybe DC goes up to Zach and Dan Skyver and says, here's a massive paycheck, you're coming to work for us now, and they took it. Let's say that happened.
Oh, geez.
No, but if
it
won't happen. But let's say that happened. Well, the thing I'm pointing out here is that the crowdfunding would take a massive hit. It doesn't have the stability in the platform yet to continue to go without some of the big names driving it. And so stability means that the big names can vanish and new names can come in and it can continue to grow. That's where we're headed. That's where we need to head to. And it will take a while.
Right. Which I agree. And I think that's what people originally saw when Ethan showed up, but then afterwards it's become, well, reliant.
Yeah, well, and it may be. It's and this isn't about Ethan or any one person.
No. I'm not. That wasn't meant to be a pot shot at him or anything.
No. I'm not. Well, you can take as many pot shots you want at anybody. I don't care. But I'm not saying that.
Just saying, I didn't mean for that to come off like it.
No, it did. I didn't. I think one thing that we, as a bigger group of people, should do is when we talk about crowdfunding, we've got to be able to talk about that channel, that ability to distribute comics, ability to get things out, and not have it always linked to the same 2-3 people. And today it is. If you say crowdfunding on Twitter, immediately people are going to want to talk about, Ethan or what Zach's doing. And that's cool, but they have their own business model, their own line, everything. And that's great. Crowdfunding is a bigger topic than that. And so it's kind of like, you mentioned something political and immediately you're thrown into one of two camps. It's the same thing as that comics. So
yeah, look what happened with Sean Gordon Murphy. I'm going to crowdfund. Why do you want to do anything with those comics gators? That's not what he said. Yeah,
no, and then he got bashed because he was on Indiegogo and not Kickstarter. And it's that kind of stuff has to go away. That's another thing about the growing up of crowdfunding is it cannot be this knee-jerk reaction every single time to some camp. That's just it's silly and it hurts.
Yeah, one last question I want to get, since we're coming up on an hour, but do you think that it was keeping in Marvel's shadows, always having to try and, not being the cocky ones because they were always usually number 2. Do you think that's part of the reason why DC were able to take what happened with the pandemic seriously and regroup and reorganize things, whereas Marvel just decided to be we got this? Do you think that was part of the reason, or do you think it was just yeah, because it feels like there was a lot more laziness on Marvel's part, if you ask me, compared to DC?
Well, I think that the biggest thing there was that DC had issues with Diamond that predated the pandemic. And we now know that they had been complaining for a while and wanted changes. That had been poking around at this. So this was for DC, it became kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, and they were ready to kind of spring into action and start changing things. Where Marvel was concerned, Disney as a parent moves very slow to a lot of these things, and their attention was definitely on their parks and where their bigger business was being made, Disney Plus and other things. And so the Disney message was probably more along the lines of, it's only going to be a couple months, wait it out. And DC,
I'll talk about editorial, not distribution.
No, but editorial. I mean, it all kind of feeds to the same. I think it was like, hey, let's just don't worry, we're going to be at about a 2-month slip. And remember, a lot of those people are coming in out of New York, and they were hit very hard in March and April. So it was really, I think it was just like it's no big deal. Let's wait it out. Whereas DC was almost primed, kind of out of anger and frustration with Diamond, to start making these moves. And so you just saw them leap ahead as a result of being ready to leap ahead. I think Marvel, if they were just coming into Disney, they would have probably leapt ahead too. But they're very comfortable with their corporate owner at the moment, and so they didn't feel like they needed to. And time will tell if this gives DC a big advantage in sales or not.
Yeah, because I feel DC, like I said, editorially, DC's been on the ball for the most part. Again, Bendis aside, for example, but whereas Marvel, it still feels like a mess.
Mm-hmm. Marvel still is struggling a little bit, and I think Marvel also seems emotionally, their creators seem a little bit more tired, if that makes any sense. It feels like they kind of, the spirit is not broken, just a little bit. They come across sometimes as exhausted, and this virus and everything else is exhausting everyone right now. So I get it. But it definitely feels like there's a little bit more of a struggle to kind of get back in momentum again. Yeah. A couple comments. What would be a good price for a crowdfunded comic? I mean, it's what the market would bear is the short answer. But I think if you're coming in new, you're a creator nobody knows, or a lesser known creator, and you're wanting to try and get your product out there. I think if you're trying to come in at a at a $10 price point, that's probably is a good price point. Somebody mentioned $10 for 100 pages sounds super reasonable. This is almost too generous. 100 pages is a lot, but I think if you're sticking into that basic model, that's not bad. I also think if you're new to this, you're a new artist, you haven't perfected your craft yet. I think, rather than wait and not release anything while you maybe get better at it, put it out cheaper. Start to build that fan base. Fans tend to love it when they can be along for your career ride, where they see you getting better and better and better. And so get your product out earlier and start at a lower price point if you need to. I think it'd be a good, strong thing.
I always look at, like I said before, I look at the page count to do everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I always look at the page count, then the price point. And lately, for example, Bigfoot Bill, both books around $60 for over 100 for both books. That's not a bad deal for oversized hardcovers.
Yeah, exactly. I like this. This comment is really wise too. Comics need to be biased toward the mainstream. It's a consumer product. Crowdfunding is effectively built on the underground comics model, which limits it in reach as well as potential to grow. I think this is a true statement. I think crowdfunding, a lot of those are indie books. And if you are trying to build a franchise out of your book, you need to be seeing how you do push it into the mainstream. But the mainstream doesn't necessarily mean, direct comic market and diamond and shops. It just means, how do you get a wider appeal? How do you get, more of your book? And that you should everybody should be thinking about this for sure.
Yep. I think that's one, like with me, for example, I do have a franchise in mind, again, multiple books I can think of. Of course, I'll do it as an anthology. And I always feel like someone they crowdfunding books, I feel like they're just short-term, short-lived, or done-in-ones. And it feels like you can't build a market off of done-in-ones or people being so absolutely protective of their characters that they're not going to be willing to pass the baton off to someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And
except for your boy Zach, he's the only one who I know was ever willing to share the characters. Everyone else, it's going to die with so and so.
Yeah, I mean, the people. I think an ambitious creator needs to be thinking about a shared universe and how they get other people to play in it, because you just can't do everything yourself over time. If you have, I agree with Paul here. Yeah. And this is true too. The ideology, just like where there are mainstream comics or independent comics or crowdfunded comics, whatever else, the audience needs to grow, and you need to be able to break. If you tie your book completely to ideology, you may get a short-term burst because you get some loyalty dollars in there, but longer term, you're capping your own audience. That's just it's true. And this is so. B. Brown mentions, keeping the price high gives it more of a collector feel. If it's cheaper, it devalues old book. This is true, but you have to be a creator willing to, that is
take a hit.
Yeah, and you have to be, if you're a brand new creator to comics, don't be thinking about creating a collector product. Think about getting exposure to yourself. If you're new to comics, setting that price too high is going to limit your audience, and this prevent you from getting that collector following. You need to kind of build up to that point. If you've got a big name, you could certainly go higher for sure, but it's all about kind of building your brand over time. A lot of good comments in here. I like these conversations with people here. I think these are tough conversations, and unfortunately there is this topic quickly gets into, as we mentioned before, certain names or a certain ideology or these other things, and then you wind up talking about those things as opposed to actually the business. And I think that's one of those ways that crowdfunding kind of grows up and becomes bigger, is that it evolves beyond people and becomes bigger. By the way, hello to everybody.
Absolute last question. What do you think about the return of Snowflame in Catwoman?
I like Catwoman. I like that story a lot. I thought.
I'm talking about Snowflame specifically because that surprised me.
No, it did dig deep. I mean, I liked it. I like playing with these characters we haven't seen in a while. One of the complaints I have about both DC and Marvel is that at times they bring the same faces back over and over and over again. So digging deep into their library, I mean, they've got so much IP to play with. I'm always happy to see it.
I mean, to be fair for Snowflame, he died after his first appearance. It wasn't a couple years ago when Linkara, Top the Fourth Wall, started bringing him up again, that people were like, "Oh yeah, that guy."
Yeah. No, I anytime you can get into the depths, I think it's if you do it well, of course, you can confuse your audience too. Speaking of kind of maybe some obscure carrier, I'll throw this out here. This is the promo art if you haven't seen it yet for Ten of Swords. And this is Hickman, who likes to create new IP, which is why Marvel Studio loves him so much. The Arako, I'm going to die trying to pronounce these names. It's this is apparently the villain set or our protagonist. We're not quite sure, but we see a couple of the original Horsemen. We see War down here, and we see Death over here, and then in theory, classified is someone. There's some speculation it's Kitty Pryde, who somehow is being resurrected through Apocalypse, I guess. Not sure, but anyway, and then some summoners and all the rest. I think as I look at this image, it feels like a lot of these characters are being teased out for a future movie. Just honestly, I mean, that's how Hickman's been. That's why Kevin Feige likes him so much, as he creates this kind of stuff. I don't know how well this translates, but is anyone in the chat? Is Ten of Swords? I get very hot and cold reactions to it. Are you excited for it, Robert, or is anyone excited for it?
I don't care. I have not been buying any of the X-Men books.
Yeah,
I mean, if there's ever one X-Men book I just checked out was Excalibur, but that's because of Jubilee. That's my favorite.
Yeah. I think Dawn of X did so well for Marvel, and it brought a lot of X-Men. I'm a long-term, I mean, I'm OG X-Men guy. At some point, I'm going to have.
I love the X-Men.
I just don't. This one, it feels
24 parts.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a huge crossover.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of what's the last event to ever have 24 parts. I know the first one that pops in my mind is War of Gods with Wonder Woman in the 80s.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, if you're talking just strictly, because these are chapters, so in theory, nobody said this at Marvel yet. In fact, they've said, you don't have to buy them all, but they're also being listed as chapters. So
but when they're numbered, you feel like you have to.
Yeah, when they're numbered, I don't know that you can just not buy them all. I think you're going to have a pretty fractured run if you don't.
Like I said, I think Wonder Woman and War of Gods was the last one, not counting any of those summer events they would do in the annuals.
Yeah, I it's a lot, and keeping in mind that it's been 1 year since we had House of X Powers of 10, and we had a 3 to 4 month break in the middle of that. So we're not. I mean, it's not like this has been going on for like 5 years. It's just a lot. It's a lot to put down somebody's throat kind of 7-8 months into the line.
Yeah.
Yikes.
12 to be fine, but 24?
Yeah. I 24 parts, and somebody asked how many books. I think it's I believe it's 9 books. Is that may not be right, but it's
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I mean, and that's the other thing is back in the day of the old, X-Men crossovers, I know they would sometimes fit all of the books, but I remember when they started doing them again in the 2000s, they would have it be certain books, and then there'd be others that would be tie-ins but not required. The fact that they're doing it across all of their books, and not one of them there's going to be a side story tie-in, is bad, if you ask me.
It's a tough in today's climate. It's going to be tough. This could be Moira here in the middle. That is true. I don't know. It's just a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot of comics to put down, and it's very bold. It's very ambitious. The story's really got to land there. But it's you're bringing a bunch of new characters.
I can't think of the story being that long, needing to be that long. I can't see of a story needing to be that long at all.
What's interesting is if you're a longtime X-Men fan, I promise I'll get off the topic, but it is, Claremont would do, 20-page storylines. I mean, just in kind of how he wrote that they were all connected. One issue led to another, and he had subplots going always in the background. Why, if you really wanted to kind of get to that feel, you could very easily have this be a year-long storyline in the comic, just a single comic, and probably make a lot of people happy. But this is 3.5 months and change, and that's a lot of books. Yeah.
I mean, remember the old I mentioned my earlier a while ago, the never-ending battle triangle numbers of Superman. That was pretty much a constant ongoing story.
Yeah. It's there's no restraint here. It's tough. Now that said, if it's a great story, it'll be a great ride, but just it's a lot.
I can't fathom it. I can't fathom
It's a lot all in run, and I do think it speaks to kind of almost, in my mind, it always feels like a lack of patience. I think, as somebody mentioned, Claremont's run was 16 years. Yes, it was, but it feels like people are trying to condense kind of 4 to 5 years worth of storylines into a 3-month event, and just kind of shoot this stuff out rapid fire. I mean, take your time. It's okay. Let's.
Yeah, not everyone can. Now, unfortunately, not everyone can have that. Like, not everyone can have a 50-issue run on Immortal Hulk like Al Ewing's going to have, for example.
Yeah.
And I think that the unfortunate thing is that, and the other thing is, I think people forget one other thing: the being exclusive to a title contracts, not exclusive to the company, but the title exclusive contracts they used to have that almost guaranteed you being on it. I remember from some old podcast I used to listen to, they would bring those up plenty of times. Where a creator would be signed on to that book, they were guaranteed that much work.
Yeah.
And the book would be guaranteed to continue to come out during that point. Otherwise, they break the contract.
Yeah, there's no, absolutely. I mean, it's the comic publishers these days, they're just not built to have long runs with people, which is a shame, because you give people the chance to stretch out and really do some character building. It would be great. I like that. Yeah, I hope there's a lot of plants. Yeah, please, more plants in Marvel. Can we just have lots and lots of plants? Plants are the new villain. Plants are the new cats. I kind of, every now and then I get the feeling like there was a Marvel retreat, and they're sitting around, and I always picture that everybody's like super drunk and high, and then somebody sees like some plants that are sitting there, and they're like, man, what would be wild if those plants like came alive and started trying to choke everybody, and then that was like the next 5 years of storylines.
Can I ask, where is Myth in all this with Empire?
No, the Empire is different. You got Empire going on, and there's plants, monsters, and then. No.
I was asking, where's Mantis during all this?
Oh, she's in there.
Doing all this. Where's she?
No, she's in there.
Right.
Mantis is definitely going to be part of this, and the plant swordsman and everything else. So yeah.
Because it just feels like I've just looked through. I'm looking at the Celestial Messiah or whatever it was, arc, Madonna, Celestial Madonna.
Yeah. No.
That
stuff is there. I mean, they're digging deep with Kree Skrull and the Quadi and all these things. So definitely they're in there. We'll see Mantis. Hey, Borvak, one of the people who definitely convinced me to do this channel in the first place. You were one of like 3 or 4 that awesome guy. Does Perk like Perk? I'm Perk. Does Perch like Hickman's run so far? He's also so neutral, I can tell. The answer is yes. I do like Hickman's run, despite everything I just said. I do like it. I don't like all the the additional titles. I think the quality is kind of all over the place, but I do like what he's doing. That said, it is. I do have mixed feelings about the whole X-Men are kind of isolationists and that plot. I like that he's doing something bold and new and huge. I kind of wish he was doing it in an Ultimate book or something out of continuity, just so he could truly wreck it if he wanted to. Because I fear how this thing wraps up, and I think how it all wraps up may cause me to dislike the run. That's
you're fearing is going to be Moira's going to die. It's going to be all undone.
Yeah. It feels like it just feels like they're it feel like they're going to spoil it. But and to CD, I do hope. I agree. One way you could save this, have Moira doing something super sneaky and crazy. I also think the Children of the Vault bit is sitting out there waiting to be taken. There's a lot of things Hickman's thrown up into the air. I do feel, and I know I've argued with Jordan White and some other people about this. I don't feel like all of the people he's got writing on the comics are on the same page, because it feels like some of the storylines that get rolled out kind of get taken in weird directions. Don't feel like how they were launched, but what do I know? It just feels weird. So,
well, I got to get going, Perch. So
yes, you do. So, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining, and I'll go ahead and I'll answer some last minute questions. But Robert, thank you for joining me on short notice, and we'll have some other guests, and we'll do this every week, and it'll be fun.
No problem.
But thank you, Robert.
For those of you check out my channel.
Yes. Oh, sorry. I meant to actually put something. I'll put in the description. But Robert has a channel, and if I was very fast, I would get the link in there. But I'll try and do that. I'll definitely do it in the description. Check out Robert's channel. He does great reviews, great commentary and comics. And as always, thank you, Robert.
Yep. Take care.
Take care. I can't type and talk fast enough. But go ahead. I'll spend about another 15 minutes for people who are in the chat again. Thank you all for joining and coming in. I'm always very thankful that people are interested in joining. So bring some other stuff. Any questions? I'll answer anything people want to get into. Dominic asks, how'd you feel when Moira becoming a well-intentioned extremist type of villain when Hickman brought her back? I thought it was a cool take on Moira. Again, I've collected comics from the very beginning, so it was interesting for me to see somebody pick up Moira and do something unique with her. I think that was pretty cool. And I again, how it ends may change my mind on all that, but I do like that they're doing something unique. That is, I like creators making bold choices and doing bold things. When I say bold, I mean working with the characters and trying to make it work with their past. I don't mean retconning and erasing things. I do realize that what they did with Moira is a bit of a retcon, but it still felt like some of the homework was done to try and make it all work. And if you're getting way deep into X-Men lore, Chris Claremont had plans for Moira to be, more than she was. So Hickman was picking up on those seeds. So it wasn't a true retcon. It was all kind of there. Ash is watching me on 2 accounts. Thank you, Ash. You guys are crazy. Awesome. And thank you very much. There's 2 bits here. Curious how you feel about death metal and that whole saga as a creator. I know you're not a big DC guy at all, but I'm wondering if somebody less attached to that all universe thinks that this whole thing. Wait a minute. I don't. It feels like I'm missing part of your question here. I actually do. I've read a lot of DC, and I do like DC. I go back and forth between the two. My past was definitely coming up with the X-Men, a lot of the Marvel stuff at the beginning, but I've read all those books. I have good feelings about different eras. A death metal feels like a stunt event book. It feels like everything's being shaken up, and I think that it's okay for companies to do things like that, where everything goes crazy, you throw everything at the wall. The trick is, again, with death metal, almost the exact same thing I said for Hickman and the X-Men. How is this going to land? Is this going to reboot the DC universe and change everything? And in which case, I'm less into that. I do think there's value in a, for lack of a better word, a big action summer event where things are just crazy, and we see a lot of that other stuff. But the comic publishers, the big 2, seem to be kind of gearing up to wanting to do 2 or 3 of those kind of big crazy events a year, and that's just too many. It's going to blow the whole thing. So I think anyway, but it sounds like there's more to your question. So I'll come back to it if you have. What indie publishers do you recommend for a guy that's sworn off the big publishers? You have to look at the titles, I think, more than the publishers. I think everybody's got a little bit of everything going out right now. I think there's some good stuff from Boom, some good stuff from Vault. I think, there's stuff everywhere. I think you have to go, when you're talking about the indies, you have to go title by title, and then the publisher is almost an afterthought at that point. I don't think any publisher is just curating a perfect line across the board. I think you have to go more to titles and fit. One thing I will do, I need to do a better job of saying, if you like, we'll do some videos saying, if you like horror, here are 12 horror titles kind of across different comics to take a look at. If you like this kind of book, here's some things that might match up with you. I need to get to that kind of content, and I think it would be helpful. How is the indefinitely drawn out situation with the bear bug affecting the opening of your new store? My new store, I need to just do a commentary. It is a absolute wreck of a mess of trying to get into a space and things not completely done, and construction. One of the groups that did need to complete some of the work in the little complex, because in the same place there will be a Target and a Dave and Buster's and some other things going to the same kind of complex. And it is there's some work that's undone, and unfortunately there were some protests in the area, and the protests came and not the protesters, but people somewhere attached to it looted the construction company's little kind of mobile home or van that they had set up with a bunch of their tools. So they got angry and left the project, and so that they're not working on my shop, but they have to complete the electrical work so that my shop piano, but it's just a gigantic mess, and I could go on and on for about 20 minutes about how insanely pissed I am about the whole thing. But there you go. There's some good comments about pricing and other things. Whew. What's this? When you did your retrospective video on the Avengers, would you do one for Legion of Superheroes or any DC? Yes, I'm doing DC next. And probably the Legion of Superheroes is what I'd love to do, because when they relaunched, there were some major changes. I mean, when Keith Giffen did his Legion kind of relaunch in I want to say the 80s, probably is when that happened. I mean, it was just such a radical departure that I think Legion would be super fun. I think all of like 24 people would care, but it would be fun for me, and I need something fun. The Avengers retrospective, I mean, just if you couldn't tell from the videos, that thing defeated me. Like, I was really excited going into it, and then like by the time we got to the 40th comic in that run, it was like, oh my god, we were getting into the Bendis oral history of the Avengers, those issues. It's like I can't, because I can't. I mean, that was a slog to get through. So I need to get some better ones. So. Is NBC Comics going to amount to anything more than Broadway Comics, Topps Comics, and other such media forays into the industry? I think it will amount to a very small handful of comics that get published through Boom that they have intentions to take into studio properties. So I can't imagine the NBC Universal Comics imprint being 6 comics a year max. I think even that probably is pushing it a little bit. I think you'll see some vanity projects go there. I think they're going to be aimed toward movies. They're going to see what sticks. It's not going to be. They're not going to compete with Marvel and DC, but I don't think they're trying to. They're trying to create a different vehicle there. It's going to be much more analogous to what kind of AWA is doing and some of these other companies, where they're trying to just get some properties out there. And so that's I don't. It may amount to some good stories, and we'll look at that. But it's part of the overall slide of the industry, where we're going to see probably Marvel and DC still trying to carve out that monthly kind of episodic storytelling bit, and you're going to see everybody else just start to move toward one shots and graphic novels and limited series that are designed to be kind of one and done stories, or more like a movie model or a streaming model. That's the future, and that's where crowdfunding, when it comes into what it's doing, it will fit nicely into this graphic novel kind of world. It just needs some more distribution channels to do it. So anyway, any last comments, questions, anything else? Again, I want to thank everybody for joining. So a couple of things to mention. I'm going to try and do this every week. So I would love some feedback on a good day to do it. I don't know if Friday's a good day or what day people would like. I always feel bad when I start a live stream and then I see like 2 other people that are, friends of mine or good people are also doing a live stream. I always feel like I'm screwing them by doing one. So I want to try and pick a time where I'm not, being mean to others. But if there's any feedback you have on this, I'm going to make sure I have a guest or a partner in crime to do this, so people can come in. And I've been drinking the whole time, Ash. So that's what I've been doing. I've been having a good time. I need to pass out the drinks. The other thing I want to do is I do want to bring on some people, as I mentioned in another video, who have some very, very definite opinions on either crowdfunding or ideology, or if you are a person who believes that the comic industry is circling the drain and about to die and it's in dire straits. I would love to have you come on. I'd like to talk to you and hear about that perspective. I do have some people who are kind of on the other end who believe that kind of the fans are toxic and that the mobbing, that block bots are justified and all the rest. I want these voices to come on to kind of say their pitch, talk about it a little bit. If you would like to do that, please reach out, message me. I promise it's not a surprise attack. I'm not going to come here and call you stupid or anything else. I just want you to be able to kind of state your case and we can kind of talk through it a little bit, because I think getting into some of the nuance and the details of these statements will help us all get a little bit better and get out there. Oh, wow. Okay. So there's a bunch of little things here. So first, like I mentioned, Ash, no, I've been drinking the whole time. Hey, I will post this. So if you want to hear the beginning of it, it will be posted and then you can see it. Sci-fi, I'm putting the comments on the screen. Sci-fi for me says there really needs to be a TV guide for streams. Yes, there does. If we all got organized, we could have one hell of a podcasting network. I'm just saying. My thoughts on, where is it here? My thoughts on the new Keanu Reeves comic. It'd be crazy. I don't think it'll be very memorable, but what is Berserk? It's spelled all weird. But hey, cool. If it slows down below 60, then the comic explodes, is what is going to happen there. Beef Stash, I can't say that name right. Do you think Disney's recent money woes will eventually affect Marvel publishing? Probably not, only because Marvel publishing is so cheaply kind of put together, and there's so little money kind of going in or coming out of it that, these bigger changes are unlikely to hit it. I mean, Disney could delay one ride revamp. They're changing out Splash Mountain to be Princess and the Frog, and the cost of renovating and changing that ride around is going to be more than it costs to fund Marvel for probably 2 to 3 years. So it's, I think they'll delay some projects. Disney had, I want to say, 2 new cruise ships that they're getting ready to put out into the water, and I think if those get delayed by a year or two, just in getting built, I mean, that's where they're going to look to save their money, honestly. I should get Nerdronic on. He's dirging something fierce. Okay, why not? Matthew writes, hey, and hello to you. Yeah, it was good talking to you last night. By the way, I'm such a space cadet with some of this stuff. I mean, I've got so many different things going on. Often just keeping things, organized is part of the problem. A bunch of people are now coming in right at the end. Hello, Yule. Yes, I did say opinions, Ash. Let's do it. Durgio Drew said the comic industry is circling a drain, but it's been doing that since 1972 at least. It's a long circle. I think, I always say I don't think it's circling the drain. It's just the term is arrested development. It's not going up. I know the news report that came out that said the comic industry is bigger than it's ever been, but yeah, I mean, it's including Raina Telgemeier and Dogman and other things in there. The comic industry should be 10x that number. It should be blowing up all over the place. So it's to me, it's less than it's dying. It's more that it's not living, if that makes any sense. Anyway, Dominic, myself, Wes, the other aficionados are Joe Rogan of geek culture. Cool. Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't listen to Joe Rogan nearly enough. And when I say nearly enough, I don't think I've heard Joe Rogan in like 2 years at least, but I should. There's never enough time. I am not on the Comic Aficionados show tomorrow. I think he's got a full panel, but he always does good work over there, and it's a good show. And I think we try and ask questions and get things out, and sometimes people hate that, and there you go. Cool. If there's no other questions, I'll probably just start to wrap this up. I do want to give a big thank you to everyone for you coming on here. I'll put this on here. I'm always humbled. This sounds cheesy, but I mean it. I'm always surprised when there's a person, like when I see the video come up and it's like got 1 like or 1 view. I'm like, wow, I wonder who that person was. Good for them. That's cool. I'm glad they listened. I'm never gonna, I think, get out of that mentality. I don't know why. It is. It's just how I don't know. For whatever reason, it is what it is. Larry King, who was a very great guest last week. Thoughts on the upcoming Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin? Cool. I think that's a property with a lot of legs to it, so I'm looking forward to it. I think as time goes by and people get a little bit more organized and the marketing stuff can get out there, more and more of these kind of independent comics, and it's weird to think of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as independent comic, but meaning things that aren't Marvel and aren't DC are going to find more ways to shine, and I think that's going to be very healthy for the industry overall. Ash, who's going to come on and debate me, he's saying now the direct market is dying, comics are looking for a new way to survive. I don't completely agree, but this is where I'm anxious to get Ash on to talk about it. I think the direct market is changing very quickly, very radically. Retail is changing. A lot of these things are changing. And I agree with the second part of the sentence for sure. Comics are looking for a new way to survive. The incumbents, Marvel and DC, have a huge leg up. They actually have a huge strength and a weakness in this. Because they're the incumbents, they've got a lot of market power to move people and to be the thought leaders. The downside to that is they have to be the thought leaders. And typically when you are enjoying a market, you often do not feel compelled to evolve. And that's how you lose your spot and die. But anyway, that's where it all is. Everybody go to Durgio Duke and give him more views. He needs more views. If he's only got 1 view, he deserves more. He's had some great things to say this time. Anyway, thank you very much for everything. I still want to know the story behind B Brown coming and talking about cyberfog on every video. You don't do that every video, but I'm glad you found something you like. I really am. And thank you everything. Thank you everything. Thank you very much again for stopping by, and hope you have a great Friday, a great weekend. Stay healthy, stay safe, all that stuff. Send me your questions and I'll get into it. Some awesome stuff. And I think in about 2 weeks or so, I'm going to have something pretty cool, maybe 3 weeks, pretty cool to announce. Not about my own title, but I will start showing some stuff for kind of comic I'm making. But there's some cool technology. I've been talking for a while about how to disrupt and make digital work. And I know I maybe longer than that, but I've got some cool stuff that I'm going to be showing you, and I'm excited to push it. But thank you, everybody. Bye. Again, great to have you, and have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for listening.